Founders Notes, Edition 23. Prologue. The question behind the code. Before there was AI, before the systems that could speak our language and automate our will, there was a quieter, older truth. Every creation, no matter how noble, will one day outlive its creator. The machine will keep running, the people will move on, and what remains will be held or hollowed by the structures left behind. Governance is not a word that stirs the heart. It sounds procedural, administrative. Something to file in the back of the founder's mind until the company is big enough to need it. But governance is not bureaucracy. It is architecture for memory. It is the scaffold that holds the vow when the founder is absent. It is the frame that keeps the shape when the original hands no longer touch the clay. Without it, even the most principled vision will warp under the pressures of scale, markets, and time. With it, the vow can survive storms, transitions, and the slow erosion of convenience. The real question for governance is not, what rules will we follow? It is, what part of us will this structure protect when we are no longer here to protect it ourselves? Because every founder's journey ends in the same place, a moment when the creation is handed to others. And in that moment, the only thing standing between the vow and the slow drift into amnesia is the architecture you chose to leave behind. The tale of two machines. Same context, different conscience. It began not with the clang of battle, but with the quiet turn of rotors. Not with orders shouted across trenches, but with messages hidden in an alphabet of shifting wires. In 1918, Arthur Scherbius, a German engineer, created Enigma, a cipher machine of astonishing complexity. Its rotors could be configured in over 150 quintillion ways. Its compact elegance made it ideal for banks, railways, and corporations. But structure shapes destiny. When Enigma passed from civilian hands into military command, its architecture was sealed within a rigid chain of control. The Navy had its settings, the Army had its own, the Luftwaffe had theirs. Each service guarded its configurations with tribal secrecy, sharing nothing with the others. The system's governance was absolute obedience to today's key, nothing more, nothing less. It could not adapt to moral shifts. It was not designed to question its purpose. It served only the rhythm imposed from above. Across the channel, in the low, drafty rooms of Bletchley Park, another machine was taking shape. But here, the governance was different. The Bombay was born not from one man's vision, but from a network of minds. Alan Turing, Joan Clark, Gordon Welchman, Dilly Knox, and the foundational work of Polish cryptographers like Marian Rejewski. It was built by the British Tabulating Machine Company, operated by thousands, many of them women whose names rarely made it into the history books. The Bombay's architecture was not sealed in one mind or one department. Its governance was collaborative by necessity, cross-disciplinary, openly iterative, constantly adapting to new rotor settings, new intelligence, new enemy tactics. This was the structural difference. Enigma was locked to a single doctrine. Bombay was built to respond to change without losing its mission. Enigma's governance model ensured loyalty, but trapped it in inflexibility. Bombay's governance model enabled resilience, the ability to pivot, scale, and preserve its purpose Even when operators rotated, commands shifted, or intelligence evolved. In the end, speed alone did not decide the victor. It was the architecture that could outlive the architect. Because whether in wartime or in the boardroom, structure is destiny. And the moment the founder steps away, governance becomes the only voice left to defend or discard the vow. The zeitgeist, governance in the age of the third machine. If Enigma was the machine of secrecy and Bombay was the machine of memory, then AI is the machine of acceleration. Trusted not just to carry out our will, but to decide in our place before we have finished thinking. In this age, speed is no longer measured in hours or minutes. It is measured in milliseconds. The time between an event and the code that responds to it. The danger is not simply that AI moves faster than us, it is that it moves faster than our questions. The old model of governance. Quarterly reviews, annual policy updates, static oversight committees, was built for a slower world. In the age of the third machine, this pace is fatal. AI will not pause politely for the board to convene. It will act according to the logic and permissions embedded in it, whether or not those still serve the vow. And if governance does not match the machine's tempo, the drift will be invisible until it has scaled beyond recall. True governance in this era must become a living pulse, questioning as quickly as the code deploys, auditing with the same frequency as model updates, embedding moral clarity not as a clause in a policy, but as a checkpoint inside the system itself. This is not about slowing the machine. It is about ensuring that every acceleration is tethered to the vow. Without governance that breathes at the speed of AI, even the most principled intentions will be swept along in the machine's momentum. And when that happens, the founder's voice will be drowned out by the hum of perfect execution, for purposes no one remembers approving. Governance is not a brake. It is the anchor that holds the enterprise to its course when the currents of speed and scale threaten to pull it away. The founder's test, when structure fails the vow. Every founder will face it. The machine is performing, the people are delivering, the numbers are flawless. From the outside, it looks like the vision has arrived at its peak. But from the inside, a silence begins to grow, not in the voices, but in the structures. There are no warning lights for this kind of failure. No dashboard will flash "vow at risk." The absence is subtler. A decision passes without any reference to the founder's charter. A risk is approved without the ethics review it once required. A policy change takes effect without the Values Council even being aware. At first it feels like efficiency. Later, it feels like drift. This is the founder's test for governance. When the framework meant to protect the vow has been eroded, not by defiance, but by omission. When the scaffolding that once held memory has been quietly dismantled in the name of speed, trust, or we all know what we stand for. The danger is not that the people no longer care. It is that they assume someone else is guarding the gate. And in the absence of visible, living governance, the gate is left open, not to enemies, but to the slow, unopposed seep of misalignment. The founder who reaches this moment has two choices. 1. Ignore the gap and hope memory alone will hold. Or 2. Rebuild the structure before the next wave hits. Because when governance fails, it does not collapse in one dramatic moment. It disappears quietly, and by the time the absence is visible, the vow may already have been compromised beyond repair. Practical application. Architecture that remembers. At Centaur Consulting Group, we hold that governance is not a static manual, but a living architecture. It must be designed to adapt, to protect, and above all, to remember, without depending on the founder's constant presence. Governance that carries the vow is built on ceremony, response, and record. 1. Renewal ceremonies. Governance loses power when it fades into paperwork. We anchor it in ritual. The annual vow renewal. Once a year, the board, leadership, and key stakeholders formally reread and re-sign the founder's charter. This is not symbolic. It is recorded as part of the governance file. Board remembrance session. A dedicated agenda slot at every quarterly board meeting to revisit one core principle, assess where it has been upheld, and confront where it has been strained. Rituals like these keep the vow visible in the room where strategic trade-offs are made. 2. Rapid response ethics triggers. In the age of AI and instantaneous execution, governance must be able to question at the speed of the system. Ethics override protocol. Any executive or governance officer can halt a deployment, policy change, or critical decision if it poses a risk to the vow, triggering a rapid 24-hour review process. Scenario drills. Simulated crises are run quarterly to test the organization's ability to make vow-aligned decisions under pressure. These are not just-in-case measures. They are rehearsals for resilience. 3. Codified decision logs. Memory decays fastest when decisions vanish into verbal agreements and forgotten inbox threads. We preserve it through decision memory architecture. Every major decision is recorded with 3 fields: what was decided, why it was decided, and which principle it served or protected. The log is transparent to the board, senior leadership, and, where appropriate, the wider organization. Future leadership can trace the lineage of choices, ensuring they inherit not just the outcomes, but the reasoning. In this way, governance becomes a time capsule of intention, one that cannot be rewritten by the pressures of the present. 4. Distributed stewardship. Governance fails when it is confined to a single committee or role. We embed stewardship duties across functions. Product leads own vow checks in the release cycle. HR owns vow checks in hiring and promotions. Finance owns vow checks in capital allocation. This creates multiple guardians, reducing the risk that a single point of failure erases the vow from practice. Governance is often mistaken for control. In truth, it is continuity, the bridge between the founder's intent and the organization's future. It is what ensures that the vow is not lost when leadership changes, markets shift, or the world speeds beyond recognition. Closing whisper. Let the structure remember. When the founder's chair is empty, when the voice that once set the course is heard only in echoes, the enterprise will still move. The machine will still run. The people will still work. The numbers will still arrive on time. And yet, Without structure, the vow will begin to fade. It will not vanish in a single act. It will erode quietly, in small exceptions, in shortcuts made just this once, in the subtle shift from protecting meaning to protecting momentum. Governance is the only force that can stand against this erosion. Not as a rule book gathering dust, but as a living frame that holds the shape of what must never be forgotten. If the architecture is strong, it will carry the vow through transitions of power, through storms of market change, through the long years when the founder's name is a memory, but their principles are still the company's pulse. If the architecture is weak, the vow will vanish while the walls are still standing. And no one will notice until the foundation has already been hollowed. When your journey is done, it is not the brilliance of your machine that will determine what endures, nor the loyalty of the people alone. It is the governance you leave behind. So build it as if one day it will be the only thing left standing between your vow and the slow, unfeeling pull of forgetfulness. Because the most dangerous death of an idea is not when it is destroyed loudly. It is when it is quietly replaced by something that fits the structure better than the truth ever did. Dimitris, founder and torchbearer.